talking about Space Jam today in basketball. We've already done the joke when I spin the basketball on my finger, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
If people haven't seen it, there we go. Spin it on my middle finger. Boom, let's crack on. Spend enough time on the internet and you'll eventually come to the realisation that 90s kid is just code for sad, nostalgic adult. One of the things from that era that is looked at with a pair of Daredevil strength rose-tinted glasses is the movie Space Jam. A film that was so out of step with how the Looney Tunes normally act that one of the guys who knew them best openly said he hated it.
Who was this man?
This was Chuck Jones, an animation legend. During his career, Jones worked as an animator for Warner Brothers, creating one of my personal favourite characters, Wile E. Coyote, along with personification of the internet nice guy, Pepe Le Pew.
Pepe Le Pew was a weird character.
Yeah, looking back on Pepe Le Pew today, with today's sensibilities, given everything that's currently going on in Hollywood and the allegations that have been made, a character who is essentially a nice guy who refuses to take no from a female who is visibly uncomfortable with advances does make for interesting viewing in 2018, I will say.
Ah, my little darling, it is love at first sight, is it not?
It's kind of like those old Looney Tunes cartoons where like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck beat up Hitler. Do you remember those? The World War II propaganda cartoons?
Not really.
There were World War II propaganda cartoons starring Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny, voiced by, obviously, the legend that is like Mel Blanc, so the voice of Bugs Bunny, where they go over to Nazi-era Germany and make fun of Joseph Goebbels and Adolf Hitler, including a bit where Bugs Bunny puts a boot polish on his head, sweeps one ear over his face, and pretends to be Hitler, which we're now going to show you guys at home.
I guess obviously you have to like at the time it's in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean about Pepe Le Pew. Right, you go back to the 80s when this is the character. Like, even earlier, I think Pepe Le Pew was around. But looking at those cartoons with today's sensibilities, it kind of makes for uncomfortable viewing. The same with those World War II propaganda cartoons, where it's like, oh, here's a lovable childhood mascot who we know today for playing basketball with Michael Jordan, just kicking it with Adolf Hitler. Okay.
Ah, Himmel!
Also, as a fun fact, that propaganda cartoon is the very first utterance of Bugs Bunny's famous catchphrase, "I must have took a wrong turn at Albuquerque."
Say, you know, I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
The first utterance of that was in World War II propaganda. The more you know, kids, the more you know.
Let's hop right on back to Chuck Jones.
Of course, yes, I think we've discussed World War II era propaganda starring Bugs Bunny quite enough for one video. So yeah, Chuck Jones, obviously I mentioned, is an animator originally and created by Pepe Le Pew, Wile E. Coyote, but his best work was as a director. And some of the cartoons he directed, like under the Looney Tunes banner, are considered like some of the finest in animation history. Probably his most famous is that he condensed the entire operatic work of Richard Wagner into a 6-minute short, which is now widely considered one of the single greatest pieces of animation in history.
Kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit.
Kill the wabbit?
In other words, when it came to animation, and the Looney Tunes specifically, Chuck Jones knew what the fuck he was talking about. So, to the very heavy heart that I have to report to you, our faithful viewer, that he hated the cinematic cult masterpiece that is Space Jam.
No!
Do you know what my favourite bit about Space Jam? That album went like mega platinum. The album for Space Jam, do you know, like with I Believe I Can Fly and all on it, that went like triple, quadruple platinum or something stupid like that. It's one of the best selling movie soundtracks of all time. So movie soundtracks by sales go like Titanic, some other shit film, Space Jam. Yeah. And I think it might even be higher. It might be tied. I can look that up and find out.
I'll double check it. Yeah.
I just know that soundtrack album is one of the best-selling movie soundtracks and albums of all time. All because of just I Believe I Can Fly.
I believe I can soar. I see me running through that open door.
So what did Jones say about Space Jam?
As far as I'm aware, he only commented on the film once, shortly after receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work in animation. In case anyone watching is still not convinced, this guy is currently sat in heaven on a golden throne shaped like Bugs Bunny's head. And he was asked by an interviewer what he thought about the film, because it just came out quite recently, and he wasn't very kind to it. He didn't like the characterisation of any of the Looney Tunes, and he felt that the plot was ridiculous because Bugs Bunny could have solved it in 7 minutes, according to him at least. For anyone who doesn't remember the plot of Space Jam and is for some reason still watching this video to this point, I'll quickly recount the plot for you. Basically, a bunch of aliens called the Nerdlux try and take over Looney Tunes world. Bugs Bunny is having absolutely none of that shit and challenges them to a game of basketball because they're very small and he's quite tall. The Nerdlux respond by stealing the basketball prowess of several NBA stars of the day. Bugs Bunny responds by recruiting Michael Jordan to train him and the other Looney Tunes how to play basketball so they can defeat the aliens and save the Looney Tunes world.
That sounds like an awfully complicated plot to condense into 7 minutes.
You say that, Brad, but remember, Chuck Jones did the exact same thing to an opera. And how long are operas normally? What, 3-4 hours long? And he condensed that down into 6 minutes, including all of the songs and music, and that's widely considered one of the single greatest pieces of animation in history. I'm almost positive he could do the exact same thing with a plot that is basically a basketball game between aliens and the Looney Tunes.
I got it! I got the ball! Yay!
What were the specifics of the issues he had with the plot?
Well, some of the main criticisms that Chuck Jones had was that Michael Jordan's appearance in the film was wholly unnecessary, as were the appearances of all the other Looney Tunes, because he felt that Bugs Bunny could have solved the plot on his own in 6 or 7 minutes. And I think the way he put it is, I don't know why Michael Jordan's there, and I don't know how they stretched it out to 90 minutes, because if I made that film, Bugs Bunny would have saved the world on his own before the 6-minute mark.
Because Bugs Bunny is fucking awesome.
Well, that's the plot of all Bugs Bunny cartoons, that he solves the plot on his own. The whole thing is that he solves any problem in just under 6 or 7 minutes. I think in Chuck Jones's mind, Bugs Bunny is the Batman of the Looney Tunes universe, only instead of prep time, he just needs 6 minutes. Whereas Batman, like, to beat Superman, needs like weeks and weeks of preparation and to get all this stuff in order. Bugs Bunny needs 6 minutes to defeat any opponent.
Ain't I a stinker?
Didn't he say Jones had a problem with the characterisation of the Looney Tunes themselves?
Yes, in particular he pointed out that he really, really disliked the line from Porky Pig where he says, "I think I wet my pants."
I wet myself.
Which is a perfectly acceptable thing to utter if you're just about to get dunked on by an 8-foot tall monster with the powers of Charles Barkley. But Chuck Jones felt it was entirely out of character for Porky Pig. And for anyone who's at home thinking, what makes Chuck Jones such an authority on how the Looney Tunes should act? I will mention that he literally wrote the rule book on how some Looney Tunes should act in their cartoons.
What do you mean he literally wrote the rulebook?
Well, exactly what it sounds like. Chuck Jones considered such an authority on a lot of the Looney Tunes characters, because obviously he invented some of them and spent decades directing others, that he wrote like short bullet point guides to episodes on how characters react in any given situation. There's a great one to be able to find for Wile E. Coyote online, which is just a list of just rules that the show cannot break, such as like the coyote can only ever be a victim of his own like stupidity. Like the roadrunner can never be at fault, little things like that. If I put a list of some of the ones below, and people said like, we've got to stick to these. This is how you make a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. This is how you make a Bugs Bunny cartoon. So for people thinking, oh, what does Chuck Jones know about the Looney Tunes? How would he know that Bugs Bunny can solve a plot? Or how does he know that Porky Pig wouldn't say, "I wet my pants"? It's because he literally wrote the guidelines for how a Porky Pig episode should go and how the character would react in any given situation. So if you'll excuse me for a moment, I think I need to go lie down now after just finding out the guy that created half the awesome stuff from my childhood actively hated the other half.
Well, that's all, folks. That's my line.
So what's your favourite Wile E. Coyote gag, seeing as you love him so much?
I think it's the rocket skates. It's gotta be the rocket skate. Still makes me laugh thinking about it. Just I love the design of the Wile E. Coyote. just the image of him on the rocket skates like that. It's just like, it pops into my head, and it still cracks me up now thinking about it. But no, Wile E. Coyote is one of my favourites, and I love the fact that in the episode that he talks, he's super, super smart. If you show the episode where he meets Bugs Bunny, and he's got the card, that's just a Wile E. Coyote. It says on it, certified genius. A lot of people have been editing that Donald J. Trump, certified stable genius on it. Oh, Wile E. Coyote's never been more relevant. I'm well happy. I love Wile E. Coyote. I've got a big teddy of Wile E. Coyote that I've had since I was about 3 or 4 years old. That is about that high. I think it's about 4 foot high. And I used to practice all my sick wrestling moves on it because it was about the size of me as a little kid. So I used to like proper stone cold stun a Wile E. Coyote. And like drop kick him across the room. It was awesome. I'll try and get a picture of it. I think he's still sat in my childhood bedroom, like on top of a cupboard somewhere, just waiting for just like that choke slam from hell one last time.
Probably looking a bit worse for wear.
Of course, but he had posable limbs as well. So he had like pipe clean, I don't know, like big pipe cleans in his arms. So he could bend his arms. So I used to put him in the position to get choke slammed like Kane. Just like where they put their arm over your shoulder. You could do that with him. Then pick him up and just look, boo! The thing is though, that's what you're supposed to do with a Wile E. Coyote toy. Because he spends half his episodes getting his shit pushed in anyway. I hardly think like an 8-year-old like drop kicking him across the room is going to hurt him when he can survive 8,000 foot drops onto concrete and stuff like that. Oh, Wile E. Coyote.